a small town in Alabama, Wilcox County. It's the kind of place where everyone knows their neighbor. Life moves at a slower pace there. But in the summer of 1977, that peace was shattered. A 16-year-old girl named Naomi Rowland went missing. Last seen alive on June 4th, her family waited. The community prayed. Days turned into a week, then two. Hope began to fade, replaced by a quiet, collective dread like thick morning fog. Her disappearance was a wound on the community's soul. Search was frantic. Volunteers combed dense woods. Volunteers scoured dusty backroads. Police followed every lead, no matter how small. Local headlines, then regional headlines. Her body was discovered weeks later, found in a remote wooded area. The discovery confirmed the town's worst fears. Brian Keith Baldwin was not from Alabama. He was born in California, a world away from the Deep South. His childhood was reportedly difficult, unstable. He grew up moving from place to place. By the time he was a teenager, he was already on his own, drifting. He was a product of a system that had failed him. A young man searching for a place to belong but never finding one. He was chasing something, maybe a job, maybe a fresh start. His journey eastward was aimless, a series of bus tickets, short-lived stays in forgotten towns. In the spring of 1977, that search led him to Alabama. He arrived with little more than the clothes on his back. He found a job with a traveling carnival, a classic refuge for drifters and dreamers. The carnival life is transient by nature. You are always moving. The carnival set up its tents and rides in Wilcox County, the same county where Naomi Rowland lived. For a brief period, Brian Baldwin's world intersected with hers. The investigation into Naomi Rowland's murder was under intense scrutiny from the moment her body was found. The local authorities were under enormous pressure to solve the case quickly. They needed an arrest. The community was demanding it. This pressure can be a dangerous thing. It can lead to mistakes, to shortcuts, to a rush to judgment that overlooks crucial details. Brian Baldwin was brought in for questioning. He was the carnival worker, the outsider. He was questioned for hours. Reports from the time suggest the interrogation was intense. He had no lawyer present. He was young, alone, and likely intimidated by the situation. The evidence used to connect Baldwin to the crime was questionable. There were tire tracks found near the body. They were said to match the car Baldwin had access to, but the analysis was far from conclusive. There were also hairs found on the victim's body. An FBI analysis initially concluded that these hairs did not match Baldwin's. Perhaps the most suspicious element was the confession. After hours of interrogation, Baldwin signed a confession. He later recanted it. He claimed he was coerced. He said he was exhausted, scared, and confused. He alleged that the officers told him what to say. The trial of Brian Keith Baldwin was astonishingly fast. It took place just a few months after his arrest. Capital murder cases often take years to prepare, motions to file, evidence to analyze, witnesses to interview. Baldwin's case was fast-tracked. The speed was a major red flag. It suggested a system not interested in careful deliberation. It was interested in a conviction. The trial lasted less than 2 days. The prosecution presented its case: tire tracks, a questionable confession, a narrative painting Baldwin as a predatory drifter. The defense did little to counter. A crucial FBI report, hairs did not match Baldwin, was never shown to the jury. But the jury never heard it. The verdict was quick. The jury found Brian Keith Baldwin guilty. The sentencing was swift. They recommended the death penalty. The judge agreed. In the aftermath of the trial, the initial relief in Wilcox County began to fade. It was replaced by something else. Whispers, doubts. The story of the trial, incredible speed, questionable evidence, started to circulate. People began to ask questions. Was it all too neat? Too simple? The idea that the system might have gotten it wrong was unsettling. Many didn't want to entertain it. The suppressed FBI hair analysis became a focal point. Why was this evidence kept from the jury? A deliberate omission? A tactic to secure conviction over truth? Stories of other potential suspects emerged. One name kept coming up: a local man with a history of violence. Authorities had focused solely on Baldwin, the outsider. Brian Baldwin spent years on death row, 2 decades. The world outside changed dramatically, but his world remained the same. A small cell, the constant presence of death, the slow, agonizing passage of time. For a man who maintained his innocence, it must have been a unique form of torture. His case did not fade away. A dedicated team of new lawyers and activists worked tirelessly. They filed appeal after appeal. They argued his trial had been a farce. His case attracted international attention. Human rights groups like Amnesty International advocated on his behalf. They warned executing a man in serious doubt would be a profound injustice. The day finally came, June 18, 1999. After 22 years on death row, all of Brian Keith Baldwin's appeals had been exhausted. The state of Alabama set his execution date. His supporters made one last, desperate plea for clemency. They begged the governor to intervene, to commute his sentence to life in prison. They argued that executing Baldwin would leave a permanent stain on the state's conscience. The world watched, waiting to see if justice would bend. The governor denied the request for clemency. On the evening of his execution, Baldwin was strapped to the electric chair at Holman Correctional Facility. He was given the chance to make a final statement. He spoke his last words calmly. He maintained his innocence to the very end. He forgave those who had prosecuted him. He said he was at peace. His final moments were a quiet, dignified protest against the fate that had been decided for him more than 2 decades earlier in a hurried courtroom. The execution of Brian Keith Baldwin did not bring closure. It only created more questions. It solidified the doubts rather than erasing them. Did Alabama execute an innocent man? The question hangs over the case to this day. We will likely never know for certain. The system that convicted him moved on. But the story remains, a disturbing reminder of how easily justice can be derailed by pressure, prejudice, haste. The case of Brian Keith Baldwin forces us to confront uncomfortable truths about the death penalty, about the quality of legal representation for the poor, about our own desire for swift, simple answers in the face of terrible crimes. The shadow of his case still lingers over Wilcox County and beyond, a permanent question mark in the annals of criminal justice. Was justice truly served, or was a terrible mistake made permanent in the execution chamber? The silence that follows that question is the most haunting part of all.